Hey everybody, welcome to Ashanda at Large, where we discuss faith, family, and the future of our community. I am trying a new thing with my recording, so hopefully everything will turn out well with this. But y'all, I wanted to discuss this very important issue among our people because I know that it's something that we know is happening in the culture, but it's very important that we still expose the unfruitful works of darkness. And so I wanted to deal with this issue. Y'all saw the title in regards to what is being promoted to kindergartners, and we are going to dig into this discussion today. But as always, I want to invite you all to like as well as to subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, and don't forget to hit that notification bell on your right so that you can get my latest updates as they come out. So guys, I want to give a shout out to Torian Rain Reloaded for first posting this story that I'm getting ready to share. I'm going to unpack a lot of things. That's why I decided to record this and do this as a premiere. But the initial story in which I want to discuss, I want to thank him for sharing it because it's very important to the overall conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up some information regarding what it is that I am referring to. So we're going to talk about this woman here by the name of Samra Brooke. Samra Brooke, she is an American politician from the state of New York. This is her over here. She is actually she's running for Senate. And I believe she started her campaign, it says here, January 2021. But she's very important to understanding what our topic is today because this is her early life. She is a daughter of Ethiopian immigrants. And Brooke was born and raised in Rochester, nearby Pittsford. But in particular, I want you all to see where her stances are in terms of her profession. It says New York State Senate. Brooke is currently the chair of the Mental Health Committee, and she is a member of the Aging Committee, the Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Committee, the Education Committee, and the Elections Committee, the Health Committee, and the Women's Issues Committee. Now, y'all see right there in particular, Mental Health Committee. That's the one that we're really going to hone in on today. And why do I say that? It's because this is the woman who is pushing forth to have children, 5 and 6-year-old kindergartners, to have mandatory sex education taught to them. So this is an article from the New York Post, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. It starts out by saying, "Get ready for the latest woke wave in education. Comprehensive sex education for kids as young as 5, thanks to a new bill in the state Senate. Legislation sponsored by State Senate Samra G. Brooke, a freshman Democrat from Rochester, will tie New York's health curriculum to standards written by a left-wing interest group that advocates sex ed for social change and would make those lessons mandatory statewide. Under that group's current standards, public and charter schools would have to teach 5-year-olds about gender identity and instruct 8-year-olds on hormone blockers to prevent puberty in transgender identifying preteens. Now, kids as young as 11 would get lectures on vaginal, oral, and anal sex. I can't make this stuff up, you guys. I cannot make this stuff up. But I digress. I'm going to continue to read. Study also queer, two-spirit, asexual, pansexual, and other gender identities and receive explicit instruction on the use of external and internal condoms, dental dams, and other contraceptives. Brooke told the Post, "I am greatly concerned about the unacceptably high incidence of relationship violence, sexual harassment and assault, and online bullying in our society today. We must equip the next generation with the skills and education they will need to thrive." But her proposal would legally link New York schools to the shifting recommendations of the Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States. We would be outsourcing our curriculum to this outside organization, said Assemblyman Michael Riley, a member of the Education Committee. That's a concern. I'm going to continue to read the article. Some parents are also worried. You think? Some? I'm concerned that it's only some. Nevertheless, the state constitution guarantees a basic education, but nowhere does it say we have to prepare our kids to change their sex if they want to, said Sam Pirazzolo of the New York City Parents Union. We have schools where 95% of kids can't read or do math at grade level, and now they want to bring in these complicated social justice issues. That's BS. You know what? I just have to just give a serious hand clap just for him calling it like it is. It's total BS. And he's 100% right. You guys know about the story that's going around about the Baltimore City student who was supposed to quote unquote graduate from high school, but he had a grade point average of, I think, 0.73, and the school failed him but just kept passing him on and on and on. And I was going to actually do a live or a recording about that, but I'm going to leave that issue alone. But he is very correct in when he's saying that so many of the children, 95%, can't read or do math at grade level, but they want to bring in complicated social justice issues. He's 100% correct. Any case, it says even parents who approve of sex ed in schools are queasy about the envelope pushing topics the law will require. It's inappropriate, said Ken Jewell, a Manhattan family law attorney whose two children attend New York City public elementary schools. These are things that kids that age are not capable of comprehending yet. Jewell favors early grade instruction on personal space and pedophilia protection, but thinks Brooks' measure goes too far. As a dad, I want my kid armed enough to know if something is wrong, he said, but I don't want to put knowledge in their heads that takes away the innocence of childhood. Okay, can you say that again? For real. A recent study by Montclair State University professors boosted early sex education as a way of preventing child sex abuse and later partner violence. I am in love with the CQ standards, declared child psychologist Dr. Kelly Rabenstein Donahue. They discuss all aspects of human sexual development and relationships and promote better communication about uncomfortable topics. This knowledge both protects kids and prepares them. New York is one of 22 states that lacks a statewide sex ed requirement. State law leaves the topic to local school districts to decide, other than HIV/AIDS instruction, which is required for grades K through 12 using lesson plans consistent with community values. In New York City public schools, that means lower grade instructions on viruses and the immune system with no mention of sexual contact until fourth grade. Middle and high schoolers receive sexual health education in city schools starting in sixth grade. Now I'm going to end this article right here, but before I get ready to move on, I want to remind you all that this is the same state that about roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago, passed the Abortion Act that allows for abortion to be full term, essentially infanticide. They have legalized infanticide, but now they want to, for those babies that are born, within 5 years, begin to reprogram their minds into something that is completely just monstrous and teaching them these illicit perversions they want to deem as quote unquote sexual education. And this by this woman who is the chair of the Mental Health Committee. Now, it's important that we have this discussion because before I get ready to share this next piece that I'm going to share, understand that this woman is not acting on her own accord. This woman is speaking with a group of people pushing this same agenda. You all know, probably heard about this man here who has given himself the name Rachel Levine. Let me go ahead and just read a little bit about this character. It says Rachel Levine is an American pediatrician who served as secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Health from 2017 to 2021. He, because I refuse, is a professor of pediatric and psychiatry at the Penn State College of Medicine and previously served as the Pennsylvania Physician General from 2015 to 2017. He is one of only a few openly transgender government officials in the U.S. On February 13, 2021, President Joe Biden formally nominated Levine to be Assistant Secretary for, you guessed it, Health. He would be the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the Senate. So you all see here this person here who wants to be considered a female. There are two sexes in which the Most High has made in the earth, and that is male and female. He made them. So that is according to Genesis 1. And anybody watching this that has a problem with that, then you have a problem with the creator of the heavens and the earth, and you better take it up with him. You can save your comments in the comment section because I will delete, block, and repeat. Nevertheless, I want to share this interaction between this person and Senator Rand Paul because Rand Paul recently had some questions concerning this man's goals, if you will, for minors dealing with quote unquote gender dysphoria. So I want y'all to take a listen to this interaction here.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned. Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I would look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about.
So before I allow him to continue, I want y'all to see what I was seeing there because what I noticed with the answer that Dr. Levine gave Senator Paul was it was an intimidation tactic. It was to assert one's a title, if you will, as a position of authority on a matter, and to insert that I will be working directly with you, and I can tell that my lifestyle makes you very uncomfortable, so I'm letting you know right now that I'm going to be working with you, deal with it. And that was the response to the question. That was the answer to the question in which he asked, which was not a response at all. I'll continue.
About minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights and the parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Now, I personally don't see anything wrong with the questioning that he had, the insertion that he would hope that Dr. Levine would have compassion. And can you give a direct answer, a definitive answer, based on the reality that this is not something that turns out well as these youth get older and get in their right mind? So let's hear how Dr. Levine responds.
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field, and if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Wow, this person is a true politician already. Just literally answered the same way they answered before. So no, I don't have any compassion. No, I don't believe that this is something that is an ethical issue. Can't you tell by the fact that I have transformed myself into a so-called version of a woman, and I missed it by a long shot, but nevertheless, can't you tell that I do not have any type of conscience when it comes to dealing with children? I'm actually horribly evil on the inside. I'm full of demons, and I want to unleash my wrath that comes from hell itself upon unsuspecting, innocent children.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine, we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER, but you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back? You give a woman testosterone enough that she grows a beard, you think she's going to go back looking like a woman when you stop the testosterone? You have permanently changed them. Infertility is another problem. None of these drugs have been approved for this. They're all being used off-label. I find it ironic that the left that went nuts over hydroxychloroquine being used possibly for COVID are not alarmed that these hormones are being used off-label. There's no long-term studies. We don't know what happens to them. We do know that there are dozens and dozens of people who've been through this who regret that this happened and a permanent change happened to them. And, you know, if you've ever been around children, 14-year-olds can't make this decision. In the gender dysphoria clinic in England, 10% of the kids are between the ages of 3 and 10. We should be outraged that someone's talking to a 3-year-old about changing their sex. I can't vote for you if you can't.
Thank you so much, Senator Paul. Senator Levine, thank you for
So I'm going to go ahead and stop that right there. I'm telling y'all, this stuff is a sicko. It's wacko, and it's so unfortunate that people have gone utterly bonkers and that they are not putting two and two together to see that this system is made up of demons. And I mean it, demons in human flesh. As the days of Noah so shall be before the coming of the Son of Man. But I digress. I'm going to go to the issue here of what the psychological field thought about homosexuality before they went bonkers. So it says here, when homosexuality stopped being a mental disorder, And this is an article by Psychology Today. It says in the 1950s and 60s, some therapists employed aversion therapy of the kind featured in A Clockwork Orange to cure male homosexuality. This typically involved showing patients pictures of naked men while giving them electric shocks or drugs to make them vomit, and once they could no longer bear it, showing them pictures of naked women or sending them out on a date with a young nurse. Needless to say, these cruel and degrading methods proved entirely ineffective. Now, before I continue to read, I agree it was ineffective and I think it was cruel and degrading. And I don't think that's the way the Most High would want us to handle a situation like that. But this was not done at the hands of a believer. This was done at the hands of psychologists. So I will continue to read further. First published in 1968, DSM-2, the second edition of the American Classification of Mental Disorders, listed homosexuality as a mental disorder. In this, the DSM followed in a long tradition in medicine and psychiatry, which in the 19th century appropriated homosexuality from the church, and Elan of enlightenment promoted it from sin to mental disorder. Do y'all see there? It went from the church and sin to psychology and mental disorder. But by 1973, the American Psychiatric Association asked all members attending its convention to vote on whether they believed homosexuality to be a mental disorder. 5,854 psychiatrists voted to remove homosexuality from the DSM and 3,810 to retain it. The APA then compromised, removing homosexuality from the DSM but replacing it in effect with sexual orientation disturbance for people in conflict with their sexual orientation. Not until 1987 did homosexuality completely fall out of the DSM. Meanwhile, the WHO, World Health Organization, only removed homosexuality from its ICD classification with the publication of ICD-10 in 1992, although ICD-10 still carries the construct of ego-dystonic sexual orientation. In this condition, the person is not in doubt about his or her sexual preference, but wishes it were different because of associated psychological and behavioral disorders. The evolution of the status of homosexuality in the classifications of mental disorders highlights that concepts of mental disorder can be rapidly evolving social constructs that change as society changes. Oh, you don't say. Today, the standard of psychotherapy in the US and Europe is gay affirmative psychotherapy, which encourages gay people to accept their sexual orientation. Now, isn't it very interesting that now we're in a position where this behavior is accepted? This is so accepted. No, my friend. It's not just accepted, it is literally pushed now on children. And by this woman right here, Senator Samra Brooke, and that person, Rachel Levine, that are pushing this. And y'all, when I first heard this story, I'm going to tell you, I was really, really broken up by what I was listening to because I couldn't imagine for a moment that one that looked like us, a melanated person, would involve themselves in such debauchery. But then again, I don't know who I was fooling because we know that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And y'all, we are dealing with some real spiritual enemies that just happen to share our bloodline, or maybe she's a Hamite. I don't know. But what I will say is that this is absolutely disturbing. And it's one of the reasons why I wholeheartedly, let me say this very carefully, I wholeheartedly recommend that our children are pulled from these schools. We must pull our children from these schools and homeschool our children. I'm telling you, it is critical mass. It is no longer optional. We can't sit around and tell ourselves that it's not going to work because X, Y, and Z. We cannot put our children on the altar of Baal for a career or for a job. I get it, y'all. The struggle is real. Many of us are thinking about how we're going to be able to put food on the table and keep a roof over our head and still keep our children in a safe place in our home, educating them. I'm telling y'all, I know it's not easy. Y'all should know me by now. I'm a mama of 9. So I am the first person to tell you it is not very easy to make that decision to pull your children from the school system, keep them at home, and educate them yourself. But it is not impossible either. Understand that if you are going in the direction of the Most High Yahuwah, for you, the Ruach HaKodesh will lead and guide you into all truth and give you everything that you need in order to take care of your children's education. Why? Because understand, this is no longer about education. For them, it's not about it. You heard what the man said when he said that 95% of the children can't read and write at grade level. So when we talk about them not being able to read or write at grade level, and then we turn around and see that they're pushing for this transgender mutilation at such a young age, we understand this is nothing about education. This is all about indoctrination. Into whose camp and into whose army? The army of Satan, because he hates the Most High's design, because he knows that the Most High made man in his image and after his likeness. And so therefore, he wants to destroy that image. He's doing everything he can while he has time, because he knows his time is short. So he's doing all that he can to destroy the image. We are image bearers. Okay? He's doing everything he can to destroy the image of the Most High in the earth. And so these schools, these institutions of guinea pig science, where we are the lab rats, they are, at this point, in my humble opinion, they are, they need to be canned. They are no longer focused, not that they've been focused on educating our children, but on educating any children, period. They are not, that is not their agenda. That is not their objective. Their objective is to desensitize and to destroy the mind, to deconstruct the body, and ultimately destruct the image of the Most High in this next generation and our generation as well. So we need to be very careful about this, family. I felt that this was important and imperative to get out, because maybe you're not the one dealing with this, but that doesn't mean that someone in your family isn't. That doesn't mean that you don't have a cousin or a niece or a nephew who has a young child or young children who are caught up in these school systems and they don't know. I can tell you firsthand from just having children involved in after school programs, they're not exactly open about what it is that they're teaching your children when you're not around. You have to communicate with your child in order to find out that these teachers are teaching them things that are antithetical to our faith. Like, I've had teachers who have tried to teach my children yoga, and I am firmly against yoga because it literally means to bind oneself to demons. And so I'm against those so-called quote unquote Eastern exercises for that reason. But understand that it took me going to my children and communicating with them in order to find out what these teachers are trying to push. And then I was able to go through the right line to get that situation rectified and not have my children being impacted and affected by these doctrines of devils. So I'm telling you all that it is imperative that we pull our children from these schools, and that if you are a grandmother or an aunt and you have time available to help your family member who is dealing with the issue of how am I going to educate my child and provide a roof over our head at the same time, this is what community is for. This is why we exist. So it's important that you begin to help one another so that your family that's growing up in the next generation does not become a victim of these lawless criminal schools. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts about this. I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in to this premiere. I hope that it was edifying. I hope it was informative. And I'm going to ask you all to like as well as to share. Share this on your social media channels, because we need to be aware of what is going on and wake each other up to this. So thank you all so much once again. As always, family, love yourself without hating your enemies. And until next time, Yah bless and Salama.
you.